Stand on this project. So I thought I found the tiles that fit correctly. I started doing a row. Turns out, no, they're still not fitting correctly. They're off by 1/16 of an inch and it just throws the whole pattern off. So we're trying to figure out what to do. We just got back from a couple other lows in the greater area trying to find that exact batch number and couldn't find them. So we even looked at different tiles that we can use in conjunction with these tiles to make various patterns that matches, and we didn't really find anything. Well, yeah, we didn't really find anything that we liked. So what I'm going to do is go through the very laborious and time-consuming process of laying out all of the tiles that I do have in various piles, and I'm going to lay them out and see how many rows I can get to make them line up perfectly, and see if I can make these work somehow. Like maybe if they're rotated one way versus the other way, pairing them up differently or something. I don't know if I can make this work or not, but I'm trying to get 7 more rows, 16 tiles per row, and so I'm going to just try to lay these all out and see if I can make it work. And if so, then I'll put them up with the pattern that I established on the ground here. If not, then we're just going to have to start over with a whole different tile set. Here we go. This time I'm just gonna do it. Not gonna go for perfect, I'm just gonna go for done. Wish me luck. are looking at about 2.5 days worth of work right here. Boy, this is turning out to be quite the project. So the good news is, like, I've gotten, like, all that's cut around, it's cut around there. I only have, let's see, that row to go right there, and then I have the top row to go. But I hit a little bit of a snag. Take a look at right down there. What do you see? Yeah, that is that's one of the pieces of tile that I installed over a week ago. So what happened was I was standing on the edge of the tub to reach to the top up there. You probably saw that in the time lapse a little bit. My foot slipped and I kind of pressed into the bottom of that tile there, and the tile popped off the wall. Which is very strange given that that's been up there for an entire week. So that means that the adhesive, the mortar, actually it's called mastic, I'll get to that in a second, that mastic didn't dry. And I just called the manufacturer of the stuff I've been using. It's called Type 1 tile adhesive. Well, turns out that I am using the wrong product to adhere the tiles to this wall. Completely the wrong product. All right, so here's the issue. The issue is this Type 1 tile adhesive requires evaporation to cure. And it can't evaporate behind the tile because the tile is not porous, and it can't evaporate on the substrate, which is drywall, because the waterproofing membrane is preventing it from, from absorbing any moisture and drying it out. So basically what their manufacturer is saying is that the stuff will never cure behind these. It'll never cure. And with the exception of around the edges of the tile where there's a gap, there'll be a small bit of curing that happens, and then as that cures, it creates an airproof seal around the edges, and then therefore the center never cures. So the only thing that I can do now is to take all of this off, wash the Type 1 tile adhesive, the mastic, off of the walls, off of the back of the tile, and then get polymer filled grout in powder form, mix it, apply it on the wall, reapply the tile. That stuff is the correct, it's not grout, it's the correct mortar for this application. So that's really, really unfortunate. So might as well get to removing this stuff. Oh, the other thing is that I could just try to leave it and just see what happens, and hopefully it never falls off. But because it's in a wet area and this Type 1, the mastic has organic material in it, eventually it's going to start molding. And we all know we don't want mold. So there's really nothing I can do other than take it off, clean it, and then reuse the correct mortar. So here we go. I'm going to show you here. So row 1, 2, 3. This is the third row, and this was put up 12 days ago. 12 days ago. So this has been drying for 12 days. And so the top edge is pretty dry. Actually, it's very dry. So that's around the border. So let me see if I can get it's not super hard, but it's dry. Okay, so I'm breaking through here. All right, yep, look at that. Just comes right off. And the edges are dry, but the center, it's kind of putty-like. It's less wet than it was, but it I don't know. I was kind of hoping that this row would be a lot more dry than it is. Let's see here, like I can just, now I'm taking off the substrate. What a mess. What a mess. Well, I seriously considered just leaving the tile up with this mastic type 1 tile adhesive, but after kind of thinking through things, I decided what I wanted to do was one column from the top to the bottom and see if the mastic ever dried out to the point where I would feel good about having it up permanently. And even getting down to the bottom 3 rows or the bottom 2 rows, which I did over 2 weeks ago, it was still not dry. The bottom 2 rows had dried out a bit. It was more like a putty substance than it was this creamy stuff that you put on initially. Even though it was kind of hard to remove because the edges had dried off, I could remove the tiles just by enough force with the putty knife and break off the dried mastic, and in the center it was just not dry. So I kind of figured that this is just not going to work. Even long term, I don't think it's going to dry out enough. And the manufacturer even said that it's just not going to ever dry in the center. And that was actually reinforced because I was finding that even with the semi-dried stuff that was on just the edge of the shower where there was no waterproofing material and it was just painted drywall, that stuff had dried, but I could still take it off the wall and I could scrape that dried mastic off of the back of the tile. So it wasn't a good adhesion. So ultimately I made the right choice by having decided to remove all of these. It's taken me about an hour per column to remove, including removing the tile, cleaning the mastic off of the back of the tile, scraping any of the dried stuff off, and then doing the same to the wall. And then laying it back out on the living room floor in the same pattern so I know which tiles go where when I put it back up. it's going to be about 3 days worth of work. So I get about 5 hours of total work time in per day. So just about 3 days, 3.5 days, because I have 16 columns to remove. Yeah, in the end, this is the right thing to do. This will ensure that the tile, when I install it with thin set mortar, talk to the manufacturer to make sure I got the right type of thin set mortar to go onto a waterproofed wall. Same manufacturer that provided the waterproofing, it will be permanent at that point in time. So despite the extra work that I have to do, it's going to be done correctly in the end, which is needed. And I know that I'm not going to have any failure down the road. I'm not going to have potential issues with mold, since there's organic material in this mastic and there isn't in mortar. I will ultimately be saving time, because if I just keep it up with mastic, over time these tiles will fall off and I'll just have to keep putting them back up, because even if the stuff dries at the edge, I'm finding that if you get it wet again, it kind of loosens up and kind of goes back into that paste. So this isn't the right material for a wet area. I should have done my research like I do on most projects before installing this tile, but I didn't. So I'm paying the price now, but it's the way it goes. So thank you guys for watching, and the next episode of the house renovation will continue on the tile. All right, I'll see you then.